Well, as we're going to emphasize in the youth intergenerational learning community here, I took a journey as a young adult around the world on the World Campus Afloat. And when I got to a sunset perch in Ghana, West Africa, a gentleman came over to us and said, "You are welcome, you are invited." Which means he didn't say, "Who are you?" or "What are you doing here?" or this is not a place for you. He welcomed and invited us to the fort of West Africa in the country of Ghana. I have been a stand for the human family getting to know each other and learning from and with each other ever since that 1975 encounter with that gentleman. So I found my way into leadership development and in business and in government and nonprofits, and then into the cause and movement building arena of sustainability as a driver of large-scale social transformation. So that's how we get to do this work together with youth, is inviting them into their natural leadership for the future of the earth.
When you asked about how did you find your way here, my first sort of sense of reaction was by getting lost a lot. So that taught me a lot about the quality of hope that I stand for in myself and for individual people, communities on Earth. It's also taught me that laughing a little bit more as we're doing what needs to be done is helpful. And it brings me into that leadership piece about, okay, what do we need on the inside of ourselves? What do we need as far as action tools on the outside to be able to do what we feel we're really being called to do?
In many conferences and other learning settings, we're inserting a principle and a value, which is intergenerational community building. So in many parts of society, youth are segregated. Well, we have ageism throughout our culture. So we are about breaking down the imaginary lines between the generations, having a learning dialogue, and spreading what are people's goals as well as their aspirations, and what stories can people tell that are beyond their younger years about how we got here, picking our life purpose and direction. How do we resource ourselves as lifelong learners? So that's what we're doing with the youth intergenerational community, is creating a space and a platform here for the conversation between all the generations that will be a new definition of the sustainable future. It's the lifelong conversation across the generations.
And a very central piece of that is really valuing, sort of turning your ears inside towards yourself as much as tuning them towards what's around you, so that there's a really deep integration of the inner self and its understanding and the environments we live in, so that we're really equally tuned to our own aliveness and the aliveness that surrounds us and that we're part of. There's a lot of culture around that tells us a lot of what to do, how to be, how much to have, what status to aspire to. And people get very lost in that. And only by getting a solid grounding in who am I and what really is it that matters to me and what does it mean to really be a living being amongst living beings, will there be a sense of enough compassion to go out and say, hey, wait a minute, there's things that need doing in this greater world, in this greater community, in this broader universe.
Our portion of the program is going to emphasize what's called inquiry-based learning, where we ask questions and find out what response gets triggered in all of the people in the room, the youth, the learning resources, the elders. And there's a meta question that guides our work, and that is, what is the call of the time? Each person that's on the planet today gets to be in a living inquiry between themselves and their environment, their history, their culture, their education or its lack, their opportunities and resources or their lack. And they get to be in a living question with themselves. what am I called to pay attention to and notice? What am I called to do? Who am I called to be? And that's the meta question of the call of the time, comes to us from the Brahma Kumaris, which is an international humanitarian meditation and healing organization that emanates out of India. But they have 8,000 centers around the world. And they've supported my learning in looking to ask that question and invite members of our society into that question. What is the call of the time? So as we already heard about turning the ears within, we ask, how do we resource ourselves and look around for a diet of perceptual input that's very diverse. So it's not, if I'm, whatever my faith background or my political background, if I only stay in the earshot of the people from that line of thinking, I have a very limited diet of perceptual input. So one of the ways to be a learner and a lifelong learner is to seek a diverse perceptual mix. And we encourage that with young people, to go and try magazines and websites and go to conferences you wouldn't think of that are for you, or find a mentor from another field that you've never pursued before and just ask them how did they get to be who they are. Diverse perceptual mix.
Another really big piece there is being and building community. I mean, some days we're all really strong. We can move mountains, and other days we really aren't. So we need each other that way to keep going, and that's part of resiliency. The other part of resiliency is about how am I relating with my embodied being? Am I breathing? Not a trivial question. How am I moving? How am I tuned into my physical existence, but not in a medical sense, in a kind of integrated body, mind, movement, emotion sense? And how can I exert and recuperate in that? And how can I really manage my energy that way? And that's a huge piece. Sometimes it's just to walk around the block, and that's all it takes. Another time it's noticing, wow, when that joint is out of alignment, my thinking is out of alignment too, and getting more sophisticated in that way.
One more piece around resiliency coming from, you've noticed we're talking about inviting youth into their natural leadership on behalf of the future of their own community, their neighborhood, the world at large. Self-care is job one in being a leader. So self-care has to do with how much attention do I pay to my needs, my well-being and health, and creating support community around me. So as much as being known for the heroic ego of I'm getting so much done, or I'm in so many meetings, or I'm at the next thing, I'm always available. Well, always available might not be the best trait. What about self-care? So it's a balance, and resiliency is the result of a living balance between our own needs to be around for a long time to serve the world's needs, and getting out there and doing the work. The leadership story has been around for several thousand years in terms of being debated and defined, and we do have an orientation toward it that has to do with a leader is someone who creates and builds community on behalf of the world's great needs, and he or she is a shaper of a future distinctly different than the past. You can manage and continue to keep an organization or a project going at this where it is now by just day-to-day management. Leadership is about vision and shaping a future distinctly different than what we're in today.
Yeah, to me what comes there is that expression, there is an alchemy of imagination that really needs to happen. That is that imagination that really catches fire with yourself and others and transforms. So our view of leadership is very much about change and transformation in the ability to bring about something that a lot of people may declare unthinkable, let alone undoable.